Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Call of Duty 4 Remastered Veteran walkthrough. This is the 9th mission, and it's called Safehouse. This is another mission that I remember very vividly, spending the majority of it on my stomach, because you could not kneel up, because when you knelt up, you got shot, and when you got shot, you got killed. And you had to push a hill full of respawning enemies that would shoot you through the windows, and then when you got in the houses, they all had shotguns. So it was just hell and hell and more hell at every possible opportunity. And then you had to search a bunch of different houses with all these respawning dudes. It took a while, to say the least. And a couple of cool things to note here, you do have air support, so if you press right on the D-pad, you can command a chopper. You can shine a light on an area that you want him to do a strafe run at, and he will do a lot of shots and do some cool stuff. And it is useful for suppressing the enemy to get into places. But on this version of the game, on this veteran, you don't even need it. Don't get me wrong, when I run towards buildings and I run out of the open, I'm going to get tagged a lot. But when you compare how much I get tagged in this to how much I get tagged in the old game, it's just night and day different. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to stay with my team, I'm going to pepper people down. They will respawn, folks, so if you waste time before you push forward, they'll just get replaced by an endless number of enemies. That's how these games used to work. Call of Duty 2 and COD 4, even World at War I think had it as well. They were games that were based on movement. And you know, you hear me say it a lot, don't you, in the Titanfall 2 videos, that this game is based on movement. Well, Titanfall 2 is based on movement because it's all about the fluidity of the motion and how your player can act and interact with the world. This game and the older CODs were based on movement, completely different way. They were based on the fact that if you didn't push up, you would never beat the level, because they would never stop coming, you would never trigger what was needed, and you would be sat at an impasse for the rest of your life. It was purgatory. And every checkpoint in this game is purgatory, unless you are the driving force. And there's nothing you can do about that unless you move forward, which forces you to put yourself into these dangerous positions. And that is why the game was so legendary for difficulty. And I say legendary just back when this came out, it wasn't that big of a deal, because it was back when games still kicked your dick in. You know, Halo was really tough on Legendary. This was really tough. Insert game. Gears was tough on Insane. Like, there was a lot of games at that time that were very, very challenging still. But we didn't look at them that way because the games that had preceded them were even more difficult. They didn't work as well, they were on hardware that didn't run as well, and they were just brutally efficient at bullying the player. And that's all they did. So when you came to the newer consoles, things got a little bit more accessible, and with accessibility, things get easier. So we don't look, or we didn't look, and I say that speaking for everybody, even though I don't know your opinions, I just know what my friends were like. We didn't really look at this as being too crazy. Mile High Club, we did, because I think everybody can agree. The Mile High Club is one of those meat grinder levels that there's no video that can help you do that. Only thing that it can help you do is learn the path. Once you have an idea of what is expected of you, flash move, flash move, flash move, wait here, flash move, you know, put your pistol on and all that kind of stuff, sprint to the end. Once you get the path, it's all about the execution, and nobody can help you do that because it is such a meat grinder. None of the enemies hesitate, they all fucking insta-murder you. All of them are crack shots because it's on veteran. It's close quarters, it's so tiny. It was absolutely brutal for everybody that did it. And this was similar, coming in here, coming in these houses on veteran was kind of like mini Mile Highs, only way, way shorter, thankfully, and checkpointed. Because if there was any enemies in this house and you didn't know about them, you were dead. You were dead every time, 100%. And it would always be the dude with the shotgun because he was a dickhead and I hated him all the time. Like, there's going to be a guy up here there, shoot him through the door. And there's going to be a guy, I think, behind me to the right of the banister. And I'm being tentative because it's the hardest difficulty. But if this was COD 4, I'd probably already be dead. It's just, look! Like, come on! I like to tell, you know, I like to think, you know, in my mind at times that I'm beasting, I'm playing well. But no, it's nothing to do with me. The game is just not the same game. And it's really interesting to see how the multiplayer's changed, because they've changed. It's a fundamentally different game in a lot of ways. It looks like COD 4, but it sure as shit don't act like it. And then the campaign's the same, so when we talk about remasters and we talk about what they changed, they really did do a lot to this game, but unfortunately almost all of what they did is bad, or in some way wrong, in my opinion. And that to me makes me very, very sad. And if you were to ask me, do you want to play some COD 4? I'd be like, yeah, I'll just hook up my 360, because I would not play this version. And that says a lot considering COD 4 on 360 is hacked to shit. But I would rather put up with those bitches than play a game that doesn't act like the game I love. And the changes you might not even notice, to you might be minuscule. You might think I'm on crack and think that I'm talking shit because you don't feel any changes. And that's fine. You're just wrong, and I don't know why your owners let you out your cage. And it's a powerful thing. Like, a lot of people are talking about Modern Warfare 2 being remastered. Do you really think they'll change the noob tubes? There's so much stuff in this game that doesn't work right, and they didn't change it. The people who patch these games and who bring these games forward and do these revisions of them are generally third-party companies that don't have the same claim as you do in the game. They haven't put thousands of hours in its multiplayer or its campaign. They're just programmers and designers that might have come across it or might be ex-Infinity Ward or something. But a lot of them, I just don't even see them being that affiliated with it. Like, look at what they did to Silent Hill 2. You know, look at what they did to Zone of the Enders. Look at what they always do. You know, these remasters. Look at the Arkham set. Like, can you imagine being a Rocksteady employee and seeing the reviews of that Arkham remaster where they're saying, this is essentially the worst version of this game? It's the most recent version and it's the worst. The PC version released like 10 years ago is superior to this in every conceivable way, and it's probably free on Steam now because it's so fucking old. But please buy this inferior version of our game that essentially pisses on our artwork. Can you imagine being a staff member and being like, oh, I can't believe what they've done this? I can't, because I'm the kind of guy that I wouldn't settle for that. It would mean war. You know, I would go to hell and back to essentially have it pulled or just not have it done. I would probably be very almost militant in how I was treated, because these people bled for those games. You know, it's their heart and their soul for 3 years, maybe longer depending on what game it is, and everything about it is theirs. Like, this game is a funny topic for this, because look at Vince Zampella. I can't remember the other name. I think it's Vinny something. But the two guys that formed Infinity Ward, you know, they formed it probably in their house or their basements, like all the legends like to say. Like, these two guys, I think, didn't they come from Medal of Honor? I was doing some reading the other day, and I didn't realise just the heritage that these people had. So not only did they put some really, really good, interesting steps forward into the World War first-person shooter genre, which they then went on to do with Call of Duty and completely redefine it, but they also did the modern version, and now they've gone over to Respawn, haven't they? Now they've been released and free of all that bullshit, and they've made the future equivalent of it, which is Titanfall. So they have 3 eras of this kind of game just completely mastered, in my opinion. They made 3 great variants of 3 interesting time periods. Can you imagine playing this from making the original? Even because, I mean, didn't they go on and say during an interview, don't fuck it up? That was like the one thing they said when they were asked what they thought about the remaster that they were doing. Because for all intents and purposes, this has nothing to do with the people who made it at all. It's like when a band gets signed to a label and they're thinking of leaving the label or whatever, and the label wants to bring out a fucking best of release, you know. Here's the greatest hits that has nothing to do with the band, it's just the label wanting to get more money off of them before they have to let them go or whatever. Quite recently, Avenged Sevenfold's lead singer was saying that they think it's childish that they're doing that. But this is not new, guys, you know, they didn't invent it for Avenged Sevenfold. This shit happens all the time. There are so many greatest of albums that are released for these bands that had nothing to do with the band, and the money probably doesn't even go to them either, because it's just the nature of the beast, isn't it? Can you imagine it being your art and having that kind of backlash? It must be soul-destroying and offensive in so many ways. I can't imagine it, I really can't. Because I'm the type of person that, as much as once I've done with something, I look back on it and feel like it's a piece of shit and I'm ashamed of it, even though it might be amazing, but, you know, I'm my own worst critic when it comes to my work and my art in a lot of ways. And I can't imagine taking that sitting down, I can't imagine biting my tongue, and there's probably a lot of legal reasons why they do it, but I would not be silent. You know, I just couldn't be. I could not be. I would not be complimentary. You know, you would have Kotaku pages filled with my quotes, because they love a bit of drama, don't they? Good old Kotaku. Speaking of Kotaku, interesting tangent for the end of this video, I was featured in one of their articles, and they never contacted me, which I think is kind of weird. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't bother me, it's free exposure, but I thought they would have. You know, if they're going to mention you, and they even link one of my videos in the page, in the article itself, you would think there might have been a courtesy email sent, but no, not a carrot. So instead, just mention me, kind of misquote me in a little way, and boom, there you go. And I feel kind of weird about that, you know, just because, and it's just one silly thing. They've reported what my walkthrough for Dishonored 2 is, but they haven't reported what it actually is. They've kind of undersold it, and it doesn't really bother me, but it bothers me, you know. It bothers me from that credibility sense of, that's just the tip of the iceberg of what those videos are, and you've not really sold them the way that I would have liked. But at the same time, it's fucking awesome that, you know, somebody's seen them and wanted to speak about them in an article, so that's great. And if you want to give me a job, Kotaku, I will gladly show you, you know, how it's done, because I do believe I'd bring a higher echelon of quality to your website and to everything that you do video game related, because I am just simply that good. But that is the end of Call of Duty 4's Safehouse level. That's a tough level, but on this version it's a piece of piss. I can't really give you any advice. You're going to get through it without much issue. What the hell did they do to this game?